Now, when you know how to harness your emotions, you stop reacting and start responding. There's a big difference between those two. A reaction is instant, emotional, and usually regrettable. A response is thoughtful, intentional, and almost always respected. That's the sweet spot of emotional intelligence, learning to pause, to breathe, to ask yourself, what's the outcome I want here? And before letting emotion take the wheel. And here's the kicker. Emotions are what connect us to people. Logic tells, but emotion sells. If you're in sales, leadership, teaching, parenting, you name it, your ability to feel and express genuine emotion is what builds trust. Nobody's moved by spreadsheets alone. People follow people who care. People buy from people they feel get them. And that comes from showing your emotions, not hiding them. You see, when emotions are used with wisdom, they guide your decisions, deepen your relationships, and fuel your motivation. They become your edge, not your weakness. But that takes awareness. It takes maturity. It takes practice. And it starts with accepting this truth. You don't need to eliminate emotion to succeed. You need to elevate it. Most people think emotions get in the way of success, that if you're too emotional, you'll make poor decisions, lose control, or come across as weak. But the truth is, emotions are not the enemy. They're some of the best tools you've got. See, it's not about having emotions. It's about how you use them. The problem comes when emotions use you. Think about a hammer. In the right hands, it builds houses. In the wrong hands, it breaks windows. Emotions work the same way. They're powerful. They're wired into everything we do. And when directed with purpose, they can fuel focus, connection, and confidence. But when left unchecked, they can wreck relationships, cloud your judgment, and slam the brakes on your progress. The difference isn't whether you feel, it's what you do with what you feel. Anger, for example, gets a bad rap. But used right, it's not about yelling or fist on the table. It's about standing up for what's right, taking action, or setting boundaries. It gives you energy, urgency, and clarity if you're in control. Same goes for fear. Fear doesn't have to freeze you. It can sharpen your senses, keep you alert, help you prepare. The question isn't whether you feel afraid. It's whether fear drives your decisions or you drive through fear. So don't throw your emotions out the window. Don't hide them in the closet. Learn how to carry them with you, sharpen them, and aim them like an arrow toward your purpose. Because the right emotion in the right moment can open doors that no resume ever could. And once you learn to use emotions as tools, you stop building walls and start building something that lasts. You know, I've met a lot of smart folks in my life, people with degrees, diplomas, certifications, and awards lining the walls. But I've also seen some of those same folks get passed over for promotion, struggle with teamwork, and burn bridges faster than they could build them. Why? Because success in life and business isn't just about how smart you are. It's about how well you manage yourself and relate to others. And that's where emotional intelligence steps in. Now, don't get me wrong, IQ is important. It helps you learn, process information, and solve problems. But EQ, emotional intelligence, that's what helps you lead, influence, and build relationships. And if you're trying to get ahead in life, you better believe that knowing how to handle people is just as critical as knowing how to handle facts. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if nobody wants to work with you, what good does it do? EQ is about being aware of your own emotions and understanding the emotions of others. It's about self-control, empathy, motivation, and the ability to handle conflict without making it worse. A person with high emotional intelligence knows when to speak up and when to hold back, when to listen and when to encourage. They don't get rattled when things go wrong. They stay calm, they stay kind, and they stay focused. I once heard a manager say, "I don't need another genius with a bad attitude." And he's right. Because if your knowledge is impressive but your people skills are poor, you're only going to go so far. But the person who can inspire others, handle pressure, and bounce back from failure, that's the person who rises. That's the person others want to follow, want to work with, and want to promote. Let me tell you something. Your technical skills might get your foot in the door, but your emotional intelligence is what keeps you in the room. That's what keeps clients calling you back. That's what builds trust, loyalty, and teamwork. People don't always remember what you said, but they always remember how you made them feel. And when you learn to read a room, to uplift others, to take feedback with grace, and to lead with empathy, you've got a skill that no amount of head knowledge can replace. Now, here's the good news. Emotional intelligence isn't fixed. It's not something you're born with or without. It can be developed. It can be practiced. It grows every time you pause before reacting, every time you choose to listen instead of argue, every time you recognize your own feelings before they become your downfall. So if you want long-term success, don't just sharpen your mind, grow your heart. Because when EQ leads the way, your impact doesn't just rise, it multiplies. And that's the kind of success worth chasing. One of the biggest traps we fall into is taking rejection personally. Someone says no to your offer, your idea, or your effort, and it hits you like a punch to the gut. You start questioning your worth, your ability, your future. But here's the truth. Rejection is not a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of a moment, a situation, a decision, and most of the time, it has very little to do with you at all. I once had a young salesperson come up to me after a talk, and he looked like he'd just lost a best friend. I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Mr. Z, I gave the best pitch of my life, but the customer walked away." I said, "Son, did they slam the door in your face?" He said, "No." "Did they insult your family?" Again, no. "Then why are you acting like they said no to you instead of your offer?" See, when we attach our identity to every outcome, we give our emotions away. We hand over the steering wheel to every yes or no we hear. That's no way to live, and it's certainly no way to succeed. Because the moment you make rejection personal, you start hesitating. You stop trying. You pull back out of fear, not wisdom. And that's where growth starts to die. Rejection is not a wall, it's a redirection. Sometimes it's a lesson, sometimes it's protection, and sometimes it's just timing, but it's never a verdict on your value. The most successful people in the world have heard no more times than you can count. They've been overlooked, underestimated, passed over, and they kept going anyway. Not because they didn't feel the sting, but because they didn't let it define them. When someone tells you no, they might be saying not now, they might be saying not this, but they're not saying you're not enough. That's the story we tell ourselves, and it's the wrong story. Instead, you can choose to say, that no just got me one step closer to a yes. That's how resilient people think. That's how emotionally intelligent people win. Because when you stop taking rejection personally, you stop giving it power. You start seeing it as part of the process, not a personal attack. And once you do that, you're free to try again, to learn, to grow, and to move forward with confidence. So let the no's come. Let them bounce off your back like water on a raincoat. Because they're not doors closing, they're just part of the hallway that leads you to the one that finally swings wide open. There's a simple truth in life. People don't always remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. That's where empathy comes in, and that's the heart of emotional intelligence. You can have all the facts, all the logic, all the knowledge in the world, but if you can't connect with people emotionally, you're only getting half the job done. I once knew a man who was brilliant, knew his business backward and forward, could quote numbers, trends, projections like a walk-in spreadsheet. But when his team was struggling, when morale was low, or when conflict came up, he'd say, "Let's stick to the facts." Now that sounds smart, but what it really did was build a wall between him and his people. Because facts are important, but facts without empathy are just cold data. And people don't follow cold data. They follow warmth. They follow connection. Empathy is the ability to step into someone else's shoes, even if you've never walked their road. It doesn't mean you have to fix their problem or agree with everything they say. It just means you see them, you hear them, you acknowledge that what they feel matters. And let me tell you, that simple act can diffuse tension faster than a dozen arguments ever could. You've probably heard the phrase, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's not just a nice quote to put on a poster. That's a business strategy. That's a leadership principle. That's a relationship-saving truth. Whether you're dealing with a customer, a coworker, a spouse, or a stranger, if you want to build trust, empathy is your foundation. And it goes both ways. Empathy doesn't just benefit others, it benefits you. When you take the time to understand where someone's coming from, you gain insight. You stop reacting and start responding. You begin to see solutions you wouldn't have seen before because you're no longer looking at the problem through your lens alone. You know, we all have days when we're tired, stressed, or frustrated, but the emotionally intelligent person knows how to pause and ask, what might they be going through? That pause, that one little question, it can change the course of a conversation. It can save a relationship. It can turn a potential fight into a moment of understanding. And that's powerful. When logic and empathy walk hand in hand, doors open. People lean in. Loyalty grows, whether you're selling a product, leading a team, raising a child, or just trying to be a better version of yourself. Empathy is what gives your words weight. Because knowledge may open a mind, but empathy opens the heart. And when you open the heart, that's when real change, real growth, and real connection begin. There's a big misunderstanding out there when it comes to emotions. Some people think controlling your emotions means pretending you don't have them. That if you want to be strong, professional, or successful, you got to stuff your feelings down, keep a straight face, and never let anything shake you. But that's not control, that's suppression. And suppression is like shaking up a soda can and pretending it won't explode when you open it. Emotional intelligence doesn't mean pushing feelings aside. It means understanding them, owning them, and choosing how to express them in a way that moves you forward, not backward. It's the difference between a candle and a wildfire. One brings light, the other brings destruction. Same fire, different focus. Let's say someone says something that pushes your buttons. Maybe it's rude, maybe it's unfair. You feel that heat rising in your chest, your jaw tightens, and your first instinct is to fire back. But emotional intelligence kicks in and says, wait, what's the outcome I want here? Because letting your emotions run the show might feel good in the moment, but it often costs you later. There's strength in the pause. There's power in the ability to say, I'm angry, but I don't need to explode. I'm disappointed, but I don't need to quit. I'm excited, but I still need to think clearly. When you learn to feel your emotions without being ruled by them, that's when you step into real leadership, whether it's over a team, a situation, or just your own life. And here's something else worth remembering. Emotional control isn't just about holding back the bad stuff. It's also about knowing when and how to express the good stuff. Encouragement, gratitude, joy, compassion, those are emotions too. And when you share them freely and sincerely, you create energy that lifts people up, opens doors, and builds trust. I've seen folks with all the right credentials fall flat, not because they weren't smart, but because they didn't know how to manage themselves in tough moments. And I've seen others, maybe not the most talented on paper, rise to the top because they kept their cool, stayed grounded, and led with emotional clarity. That's no accident. That's emotional intelligence in action. So don't try to hide your emotions. Don't pretend you're a robot. Instead, become a master of them. Let your emotions inform you, but not control you. Let them guide your awareness, not dictate your behavior. Because when you control your emotions instead of suppressing them, you don't just survive the storm, you learn how to steer through it. And that's how emotional strength becomes your greatest asset. Here's the good news. Emotional intelligence isn't something you're born with and stuck with. It's a skill, just like learning to ride a bike, play an instrument, or even cook a meal. It's something you can develop over time if you're willing to put in the effort, reflect on your experiences, and practice it every day. You don't have to be born with a perfect emotional compass. In fact, most of us start out without much emotional awareness at all. We react instead of respond. We let our emotions guide us in the wrong direction without realizing it. But as we grow, as we learn more about ourselves and others, we get better at it. We begin to recognize our emotional triggers, to pause before reacting, to step into other people's shoes and see the world through their eyes. The first step in developing emotional intelligence is awareness. It's about taking a moment to check in with yourself and ask, how do I really feel right now? Often we don't even realize we're angry, frustrated, or anxious until it's too late. But once we become aware, we can start to control how we respond. Instead of letting our emotions dictate our behavior, we can take a deep breath, think, and choose a more productive path. The next step is self-regulation. This is where we really start taking control. Self-regulation means not letting emotions hijack our decision-making. It's learning to calm yourself in stressful situations, to not let anger or fear drive your actions, and to focus on staying level-headed. It's like building emotional muscle. You can't lift heavy weights on the first day, but the more you practice, the stronger you get. Then comes motivation. Motivated people don't just wait for the world to come to them. They're driven by their emotions, using their passion and energy to keep pushing forward, even when things get tough. Emotional intelligence helps you tap into that drive, to recognize what excites you, what makes you feel alive, and to use those emotions to fuel your goals. When your heart is in something, it's much easier to keep moving toward success. But emotional intelligence isn't just about self-awareness and self-control. It's also about understanding other people. That's where empathy comes in. It's about recognizing when someone else is struggling and offering support, even if you don't know exactly what they're going through. It's about making connections, building relationships, and recognizing that we all have our own battles to fight. The more you develop your ability to understand others, the more you become the kind of person people want to be around, work with, and follow. And the best part is, as you work on your emotional intelligence, you start to see change. You see it in how you respond to challenges, how you deal with conflict, and how you connect with those around you. It takes time, it takes effort, but the rewards are worth it. Emotional intelligence isn't a destination, it's a journey. and every step you take gets you closer to being the best version of yourself. Because once you master it, the world opens up in ways you never imagined. As we wrap up today, I want you to remember this. Emotional intelligence isn't a gift some people have and others don't. It's a skill that you can develop, nurture, and grow day by day. It's about mastering yourself, understanding others, and using both to build a life of success, resilience, and meaningful connections. So as you walk out of here today, take a moment to reflect on the emotions you're feeling. Whether it's excitement, curiosity, or maybe even a little uncertainty, that's perfectly okay. What matters is how you choose to use those emotions to drive your actions moving forward. Embrace them, understand them, and let them guide you toward becoming the best version of yourself. Good luck in your journey, and thank you for being here today. The road to emotional intelligence may be long, but I have no doubt that with focus and effort, you'll find the strength to navigate it with confidence, grace, and success. Thank you, and subscribe for more.